Mostly humans, but they hate dogs a lot. So the story goes that even if one is disguised, if he sees a dog, he'll go, "Oh my God!" ah," and he'll immediately transform back into a fox and run away. They are big fans of tofu, especially fried tofu, to the point that some dishes are named for them. They're usually ascribed the ability of possession, which is usually done maliciously. They're tricksters, but they're not necessarily malicious tricksters. So in some cases they'll, harass poor farmers or whatever, but in other cases they look to take prideful people and make them look really stupid. If I remember right, there was a story about a kitsune who had taken issue with a warlord who had defeated one of his friends in battle and caused him to commit suicide. So she shapeshifted into a beautiful woman, married this man, and basically drove him insane. So
sounds like a lot of my relationships.
Ouch.
How is it different from any other marriage?
Moving on!
Okay, so let's talk about Kitsune and Toho. So there is one. Her name is Ran Yakumo. She's there. Physical characteristics look pretty similar. I mean, she's got 9 tails, gold fur. Okay, that's a Kitsune. All right. But her characterization is much different. And traditional Kitsune are very mischievous. They're tricksters. They're loyal to a fault once you gain their trust, but it's sometimes difficult to do that. Don't ever let them pay you, because they'll usually pay you with a bunch of sticks and rocks that are magicked up to look like valuable items.
And that actually happened in the series.
Yep. So the characterization here is similar, but it's not spot on. I mean, Ran is portrayed as very diligent because, well, her master isn't.
She's been putting up with Yukari Yakumo's bullshit for centuries.
Yeah. Okay, so
Nothing changes her anymore.
So it's basically Ran's job to take care of Yukari's business, which happens. Yeah, okay. So Yukari's business is to maintain the border of Gensokyo. And Gensokyo is this mystical land where all this stuff takes place. It's cut off from the normal world, and it's supposed to be a place where things that people don't believe in anymore go to basically enter retirement. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So, Zun seems to have definitely drawn inspiration from traditional myths, but he took his own spin on them because, well, okay, you can't have a family full of tricksters and unreliable people or it would just fall apart. So, second up, Kappa. Yes. Kappa are spirits living mostly in water. Usually they're portrayed with carapaces or some kind of a shell. They mostly have a bald spot, and this bald spot is always filled with water. The story goes that if the water is ever empty from this bald spot, it's kind of shaped like a bowl, that they become paralyzed, and sometimes they can die as well. They as well enjoy causing mischief, which they think involves drowning people and horses, so they're generally very dangerous. So in Japan, sometimes you see signs that warn against, dangerous places to swim, and they'll have kappas on them, you will be drowned by kappas if you swim near them. Kappas are obsessed with politeness in traditional myths. The silly story goes that if you're able to get them to bow, they'll spill the water out of the bald spot and be unable to move. They're incredibly competitive, especially at shogi, which is a Japanese game that's kind of similar to chess, and at wrestling. They love their wrestling, which they use to pull people into water and drown them. They also love cucumbers. It's the only food they're said to enjoy more than human children. So here is a Toho Kappa. Alright, so the physical characteristics are a little similar, I guess. She doesn't have a shell, but she does have a backpack. I don't suppose we'll ever really find out if there's a bald spot under the hat.
Please keep the hat on.
Yeah. Though again, the characterization here is much different from a traditional Kappa. She's not particularly polite. If I remember right, the first thing that she does when she sees the Carowinds is go, "Ah, a human! Ah, I gotta get out of here!" And just kind of hightails it. She does have a very interesting point, though. It's kind of similar to the traditional Kappa. One of the weird abilities that they have is that if you pull on their arm, one arm will extend while the other one shrinks. And this is kind of represented in, she has like an extending robot arm that comes out of the backpack. I thought that was a pretty neat way to take a new spin on something traditional. But again, Zun's kind of taken his own twist on some traditional myths when he created the character of Mido. All right, next up, Yuki Onna. So these are generally beautiful women. They appear during snowstorms. They're almost always malicious, and they enjoy freezing people to death. Usually they float over the ground. They have brilliant white skin. They're supposed to be indescribably beautiful. Interesting story about one of these goes that the boy and his master, so I think they were woodcutters or something like that. They get stranded in a snowstorm, and Yuki Onna appears and kills the older man. And then the younger man, she said, "Oh, wow, you're kind of cute. I guess I'll let you live." So later on, the guy is like, "Oh, okay." But before she goes, she wants to, if you ever tell anybody about this, I'm going to kill you. So later on, he meets this beautiful woman. Okay, great. They have a few children. And then one night, he's drinking with his wife, and he says, "Wow, this one time I met this beautiful lady during a snowstorm, and she told me not to tell anybody about it." And his wife goes, "Yeah, that was me." And by the way, if you don't act like a good dad, I'm going to kill you. So luckily, he's a kind and loving father, and he avoids death by a wife. So
This is really misogynistic this year. I had no idea we were going to go this route.
Well, I mean, that's kind of Japanese mythology in general. It tends to be like women are evil. I'm not sure why. So first off, this is Toho's Yuki Onna, Lady White Rock. The physical characteristics don't match up exactly. I mean, this might be just Zun's dirty art, but she doesn't really look that pretty. Also, they're traditionally ascribed with wearing all white clothing or being totally nude and having brilliant white skin. Letty's obviously not all with white clothing. There's blue in there.
There's a lot of blue in there.
Yeah. Though the characterization is mostly the same. One of the derivative works, Perfect Menendo in Strict Sense, Akio warns against even encountering Letty. Like, stay in your house, don't go outside, she will freeze you to death. So she's not... So in this case, Zun kind of took a trip on the physical characteristics, but made the characterization match up with the myths really well. All right, well, on... Not quite.
She's strictly a fairy. She's not a Yuki Onna herself. Well, we say that like every other fairy in the Gensokyo universe is not really stupid, because they all really are. They just happen to get singled out once in a manual somewhere.
One of the really neat things about Toho is that Zun kind of gives us pointers, like little snippets of information in different places, and kind of leaves it to the fans to piece them all together into an interpretation. That leads to a lot of fractiousness in the fan base, but in general, it's pretty neat. I really like that aspect of storytelling that he uses. So, on to the last one, or the last example that I picked out is Tanuki. They're a kind of raccoon dog animal. They are an actual animal. Yes, this is not. They are shapeshifters. They have a lot of similar characteristics to Kitsune. They possess people, but these guys are generally good-natured. So though they're tricksters, they rarely ever do significant harm to a victim. They usually do stuff like, "Oh, I'm going to turn into a wine bottle and roll around on the floor, and nobody's going to be able to pour the wine out." So they're pretty good-natured folks. In general, they like to help people out, or just make really prideful people look stupid. So next up, this is Toho's Tanuki. Her name is Mamizo Datsuya. I hope I pronounced that one right. Her physical characteristics don't match up so well. So Tanuki have traditionally very fat bellies, and how do I say this?
Very large testicles. I'm just
Yeah, very large testicles.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's be mature with this, please.
So, though the characterization in this one is spot on, Mamizo is like a really good-natured person. She just enjoys playing tricks on people, uses the shape-shifting to fool people into thinking she's other people.
Incidentally, this is the current running theory as to why Sakuya came back in Toho 14, is that all the Sakuya endings are going to reveal that it was Mamizo in disguise the whole time.
Well, those are the four that I selected here. And I hope that gives you a general idea of where Zun takes this inspiration from to make his characters. I mean, the Toho project, Toho means Eastern in Japanese. So he's really looking to draw inspiration from things that come from Asian mythology, Asian culture. And not so much things that come from Western mythology.
Alright, so the one thing we haven't really discussed so far is the incredibly completely psychotic fan base that comes with this particular series. Among one of the most unique things about this particularly incredibly psychotic fan base, unlike all other psychotic fan bases, this one actually creates original content that's worthwhile. It creates a lot of it. There is a lot of original contribution to this series. The nature of the series lends itself to that, and the fans just take it and run as far as they possibly can. One of the things they do a lot of is there's